Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Dan Martell, founder of the SaaS Academy, who just came out with a book called Buy Back Your Time. I don't think I've ever recorded a podcast with so many insights. Enjoy my conversation with Dan. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. And today, I cannot believe that I'm talking to him because he's so busy. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only, had an inspiring journey, who started the SaaS Academy, who's launching, now the book is launched as last week, Buy Back Your Time, the Dan Martell. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Eric, it is a pleasure. And I think the hype is fun. I like this. Here's what I'm going to say is I want to set an intention. This is the best podcast episode you've ever done. I think you're close to 50 or what? No, wait, 150, right? 148. Yes. So you have some incredible guests, but I want to set that intention. So use me the best way, but I'm going to give you 110%. And I'm just, whatever comes out is going to come out. So it's going to be a little wild and crazy.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. You know, every time I'm speaking with somebody like you, and we have this great conversation, I'm ending it and think, wow, this is the best one. And so at the end of the day, I enjoy speaking to inspiring people like you. And let's go with his intention. No pressure, right?
No pressure.
So first thing first, I don't know how many people know about your incredible journey. And many people are at the crossroad in their life like you were. It could have gone extremely bad and it went extremely well at the end. So if you can share a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I was hanging out with my buddy Brad last week, and he asked me about it because, you know, he'd heard me share my story at a high level, you know, and for those that are not familiar, like I grew up, the way I explain it is kind of like a Sons of Anarchy type of craziness, right? Like I didn't grow up in like the hood, and I didn't grow up in gangs, but I ended up getting introduced to drugs at a young age, at a very young age, at like 12. So at 13, I got introduced to drugs, but even at 11, 12, I got put into the system, group homes, crisis centers, foster care. And I had a lot of energy because Brad was asking me, he's like, what do you think caused that? Right? He has kids and he's just curious. And I go, I don't know, man. Like it was like I woke up and I just thought that would be cool. And whatever that would be cool was illegal. Like, I mean, I would do everything from like organize wars in my neighborhood with the kids, and we'd build spears. Or, you know, one time in middle school, I told all my friends to bring their pellet guns to school. And then we were doing a big sleepover and we had a pellet gun war. Like but I don't think that's abnormal. Like, I think a lot of kids kind of grew up in this, like, you know, they just pushed the limits. What was challenging for me and where I think things fell apart was my mom was an alcoholic. And so there was no oversight guidance. My dad was in sales, so he was traveling all the time. So I just had a lot of free time to get in trouble. And then when I got introduced to drugs and I became an addict, like went full on. Like the one thing about me is if I'm passionate about something, I'm going all in. And that's what happened. And I ended up in prison, juvenile detention when I was 15 for 2 months. You know, got out, swore I would, you know, change my friend group and change my life. I lasted 24 hours, not even 16 hours. That night, same group, back at it. And then it just kind of spiraled out of control from there to the point where, you know, I stole a car. I was high and drunk, and I had a handgun sitting next to me in a backpack that I said I would use on the police if they ever stopped me. And I was driving on the highway and took the exit, and there was a routine roadblock, cops doing registration, license, insurance kind of stuff. And I took off and I got in a high-speed chase. And I got in this neighborhood and I saw an open garage door, and I thought, hey, I'll just sneak in this door, close it really quick in some guy's house. And I ended up smashing into the side of the house, like just came out with so much speed, just crashed into it. And in that moment, I went for the gun. And I kept pulling on it and pulling on it. It got stuck because I wanted the police to take my life. And for whatever reason, the door opened up and the gun never came loose. And I woke up sober the next morning in a jail cell wondering what my life was going to look like. And honestly, wondering why I was still alive. And I started talking to God. I didn't know who God was. I didn't know what he was. I made a promise. If you can help me, I didn't have a grand plan. There was no like do anything. It was just like, I will be good. If you help me get through this, I promise enough's enough. This is the last time and I'll make better decisions. And unfortunately or fortunately, I got sentenced to 2 years for my crimes. And I ended up in an adult prison for 6 months. And then I got released to a rehab center where I like a live-in rehab center called Portage. And it was this old church camp that they converted into in the middle of nowhere. And I realized quickly why they did that is because if you tried to run away, you're walking. And we're talking like it was 150 kilometers in the woods. So the 6 houses that lived on that street, they weren't picking you up if you were hitchhiking because they knew you were a Portage kid. And I did 11 months of therapy working on myself. Like this place was magical. It was very unique in the sense that I was 16 when I went in there, 16, 17. All the staff were ex-drug addicts from the adult program in Quebec. And the residents run the program. They had this very unique approach to responsibility, right? So you started as a new member, and then there was a middle peer, and then there were older members, and then there was the chief, and the chief had the keys, and the keys got you access to the medication box in the different staff rooms and stuff. But you only got that after you like earned it. And it was just like, I learned about my emotions. I learned what made me angry. I built my self-esteem. I had zero self-worth. Like I went in there thinking that I wasn't even worthy of living, that the world would be better if I wasn't alive. And they helped me rebuild a relationship with my family. My mom eventually got sober. My dad kind of became an incredible father in my life. And what happened is that at the end of a very long, intense 11-month program, I got released early. And I was helping Rick, the maintenance guy, clean out one of the cabins that we didn't really use. It was like full of junk. And in one of the rooms that I opened up, there was this old 486 computer and a yellow book on Java programming sitting next to it. And I never touched a computer. I didn't even know what software code was or development or anything. And I just thought it would be like complicated. I open it up. I think I'm going to read hieroglyphics, and it literally reads like English. Java and JavaScript are very simple. It was like, if this, then that.
Yep.
And print, I'm like, oh, so I literally
that reminds me of basic.
Chapter 1.
I was learning
it's
basic.
very, it's basic with some curly brackets, right?
Yeah.
So I just power up the computer and follow chapter 1 of this book. And within 20 minutes, I get the computer to say, hello world. And I think I'm a computer genius. Like I literally thought I'm the Doogie Howser. Some of you guys will get that reference, the Doogie Howser of programming. Because I just thought, how did I do this? Like, this is not normal. I've never touched a computer and I got it to do this thing. Maybe my brain is wired for software and I was trying to live life doing other stuff and that just wasn't my calling. And, right or wrong, it became a belief and honestly, an obsession. It like filled the hole that was created from my addiction when I quit. And I became addicted to writing code and building software, which made my dad ecstatic. He used to joke with me all the time growing up. If I could just find something I loved to do that wasn't illegal, I think I would do okay with my life. And, I get out, this is 1998, and I discover this small thing called the internet and start building companies on the internet. And what happened was like software became the new addiction, and then building businesses became the ultimate personal development program. And because I'd learn in Portage, like, okay, I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. I am the meaning I give to the, like I learned all this stuff that today would be called personal development at 17. Like any adult that went through the program I went through would come out a better adult. And I got this blessing at a young age. And then I just took it to business. And, today I've gone on to build and exit multiple software companies. I invested in 50 plus other technology companies, billion-dollar companies, Udemy, Hootsuite, Intercom, like GetAround just went public last week. So like super blessed to do that. I run 2 8-figure companies today, SaaS Academy and High Speed Ventures. And, I live an incredible life of activity. Last year I did 3 Ironmans. This year I'm doing an ultra and a Spartan. I got 2 young boys. We go spend 2.5 months a year of travel and skiing. And I share all that just because I really want people to understand that where you come from is not, your history is not your biography.
Right. Absolutely.
And your mess can become your message. Right? Like that mess that I found myself in is the foundation of who I am. I'm a really talented entrepreneur because I went through all those challenges as a kid. As our mutual friend Jason would say, no pressure, no diamonds.
Right.
Right. And I wouldn't change a thing about that. And it's why I'm on this podcast. It forced me to become a different person that thought differently about how I approach my life, that then built, my brain just thinks in systems. And that's why buying back your time and the buyback principle just became a way of living that for a long time, I've been just teaching privately to clients that I coach with. And this is the first time it's ever been made public.
Absolutely. And we're definitely going to speak about that. I just want to come back to your story for a second. I'm a big believer in serendipity because it served me well in my life, whether you call it God, we got to call it the force, whatever it is. And I'm thinking, gosh, if that gun was working, we would not be talking with each other today. If you hadn't found this computer in this place and been sent to another center, you might be doing something completely different. So life provides opportunities, and it's really up to each of us to take them or not. And in your case, it's fascinating what has been happening for almost the end of your life to really working your own and inspiring people.
Well, this is, Eric, what Brad was asking me. Okay. Because when he's like, why do you think you ended up that way? And then the follow-up was, what do you think you figured out that caused you to take a different path? Right. Because to say that 100% of all the kids that go to Portage come out sober and stay sober would be a lie. Right.
Correct.
And I said, that's been one of the most fascinating questions for me is, what causes some people to go through the exact same experience and have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and I go through the experience and I have PTGD, post-traumatic growth disorder, right? That's the way I laugh. I'm like, same experience, same everything, but one person takes this meaning from it and takes that meaning. And I've done enough work with, folks like Tony Robbins and others to know our minds are incredibly powerful. And what I would hope everybody hears is, I believe every person listening has had moments where they could have had PTGD, but for whatever reason chose a different path. Because I am not a unique person in saying that I have experienced some life challenges. You may not have stolen a car and got yourself in trouble with the law, but you got yourself in trouble. You acted out. You drank too much. You got in a fight with somebody. You had a moment where you hit rock bottom or you were embarrassed. Mm-hmm. And I would encourage people hearing that to say, oh, that was my moment to decide I'm going to choose a different path going forward. And I do a lot of work with at-risk youth pretty much every Friday afternoon. That's my dedicated time. Dan shows up and talks with these kids from all over. Sometimes it's online, but I like to do it in person. And that's kind of my message for them is awesome. I think serendipity is showing up. And you just got to answer the call.
Yep, absolutely. Now, after selling your first company and thinking back about your life, about your father telling you that he hoped you would find something that you're obsessed with, what is going on in your mind that moment? Is it, okay, I've done it now, it's good, I'm going to relax? Or what's the urge then starting another one and another one? What's happening at that moment in your mind?
Here's the truth, Eric. That company was my third company. First 2 complete failures. Took me a while. I started young. So I was 24 when I started Spheric. I built it over a 4-year period, ended up growing it to multi-million in revenue, became a millionaire at 27. Okay. Cash, in my bank account, just because of the success of the business. I had no business partners. And then we get acquired a year later. Okay. 28, big outcome. And what happened was, about 3 months before we closed the deal on the transaction, I'm working because I worked all the time, right? When I started my third company, I was so scared of failing again that I hired a business coach, this guy named Bob. He was an E-Myth certified coach. And I hired Bob to change things. Like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I knew that. So I said, okay, I'm going to do a meaningful difference. I'm going to hire a business coach. And I hired him before I even had the business. Okay, I was paying him real money, $1,500 Canadian. I had no money. I'm 24, 23. Okay. And he taught me everything I needed. I mean, I got to give credit to Bob for 24 months. When he talked, I took notes and I executed. But what happened was I got really good at being productive. Okay. I got good at being efficient. I got good at allocating the time, but I was working 100 hours a week. I was addicted to the progress. And I was engaged to a woman, and every weekend, it was like May 2008, I would work. I'd go to the office, usually till about 11. And she told me that day, she's like, hey, you got to be back by 11 because we have a birthday party at noon for my friend, blah, blah, blah. And I go to work and I'm like, get in the zone and processing. And I lift my head up. It's 1:30.
Yep.
And
I knew that was going. Yep.
Yep. And I jump in my car, this 2004 wagon diesel Jetta, silver car I had. I was so proud of it. And rush back to our house we had just bought. We moved in a month prior, this semi-detached. And I run into the house and I see her sitting in the kitchen in tears, just beside herself, and she just looks at me and she goes, I can't do this anymore. And she took the ring off. And that was that. She walked past me and went to her parents' house, and 7 weeks before the wedding. So it's hard for me when you say, what did it feel like? Because the truth is I was in a hole. My identity was just shattered, right? I had done everything up to that point for that relationship, for our future, and it's gone. So like all of the financial upsides and all the accolades literally felt empty. I mean, I was having anxiety attacks. I had to go see a therapist. There was a period, Eric, where I thought literally for 6 months, that maybe my destiny is just to be great at business and just be like a super uncle. Like maybe I'm not supposed to have a family. Maybe I'm not. I know for sure at that point, I was like, I shouldn't be in a relationship. I am not a good person. And that's where a lot of the principles of this book specifically started to come from. I already had the GSD mentality, and I talk about that in the book, and I was incredibly efficient. What I lacked was understanding leverage. I didn't understand, because I wanted to create. Like I'm a builder, man. Most entrepreneurs, like, there's no retiring, because retire from being themselves. Like, what are they retiring from? Like, even if you could, you'd sit poolside, and then by noon you'd be like thinking of a new umbrella company, and then hire the pool boy to be the first employee. Like, that's what we do. And what I learned shortly after I exited the company, I think I lasted 3 months, retired, built this mega mansion and bought a boat and was just enjoying myself as a single 28-year-old. I decided to move to Silicon Valley and see if any of these crazy ideas I had would hold water in the land of technology. And it was there that I discovered, what does it mean to scale, and how do you do it in a way that is efficient around your time, right? Because there's only 4 ways to get leverage. Okay. They're the 4 C's: code, content, capital, and collaboration. So if time is constant for all humans, which it is, and then the only way to get more output is through leverage, and there's only 4 ways to get leverage, then those were the 4 skills I had to master. And as I wrote about in the book specifically was the one around collaboration, people, because most people build a business that they grow to hate because they hire people in the wrong order. They outsource stuff in the wrong sequence. They delegate in sloppy ways. And it doesn't create a life of freedom. It creates a life of prison. And that they usually decide, I either want to sell, sabotage, or stall. I don't want to grow anymore. I made more money last year. And, not growing is deciding to slowly die. I mean, the market's not slowing. GDP growth, your best employees are not going to resonate with that. And they're going to go find somebody that can tell them a better story about their future.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's when you ask me like that feeling today, me and my dad can sit down and it is beautiful and awesome. And, we kind of giggle at just the life that all of his kids, I have 2 brothers and a sister. All of us have just flourished. My other brother, Pierre, multi-millionaire with me, like big real estate developer, largest home builder in Eastern Canada, all this stuff. But I think sometimes we equate success on a financial level. But I wrote about this today on Twitter because I just wanted to share that, like, I think success, it's not empire, it's not van life, it's the emotional fuel that you bring to the pursuit. So what do I mean by that? When we build, we need fuel, and there's dark energy and light energy. There's dark fuel and light fuel. And most people, when they start, and I was one of those, I use dark fuel. But it burns like diesel. It's not clean. And because what does that mean? It means it feels heavy. It's, but dude, it's got torque, right? Just like a diesel engine. It'll move things. It'll tow stuff. It'll push through things, right? But it's not sustainable. So a light energy source, a light fuel source, like a renewable, right? Like the sun and electricity, then it pulls you forward, right? So today, regardless of the amount of money, the way I show up, and that's why I wrote this book, because I talk about energy management. Like people think it's a productivity book, and it's the best one. Okay, I'm not. And look, I know it's my book, but I can speak from personal experience. I've read 1,500 books. Yes, it will give you that, but it will also give you a completely different way to think about and look at your beingness in your business and what you want out of life, and show you how both can be true. You can create more income and have more freedom at the same time. And people go, okay, whatever. That sounds like a late night TV commercial, whatever. I'm like, no, it's true. You can look at my life. Absolutely. You can look at my client's life. You can read the book and show it. I mathematically back it up. And it's why it was on my heart to write the book, because I just know how potentially impactful it'll be for the reader.
Absolutely. I fully agree with you. It's fascinating to me. We moved from Belgium 10 years ago. So the kids at school here, when their grandparents' day, I'm very sad for them. They cannot have their grandparents with them, but they can, even with Zoom, they can see it's fine. But what I'm very sad for other kids is when there are activities at school or important moment where we obviously there for our kids, and I see other kids where parents are not there. And that really breaks my heart. Now you sometimes have, things that you have to do and it's impossible. But at the end of the day, to your point, knowing what you want and what's important for you in life, then you can have a great success in business as well as a great time to enjoy the things that matter to you.
But let me double click on this, Eric, because I agree with you. And then I would also want to challenge the listener. I had a buddy of mine come to me once. He was super successful, and he wanted to talk to me about some of the stuff I'd been sharing online. And I get on a call with them, and he shares with me, this guy, multi 8-figure business. He shares with me, he goes, you shared something and it cracked me wide open. And I said, what's that? And he couldn't even get it out. He was emotional about it. He goes, when I started my business, we got into a really bad place, like 3-4 years in, borrowed a lot of money, business wasn't working out. And I knew what I had to do to fix it, but it was going to require some sacrifice, and he had a young family at the time, maybe 2 or 3 kids. He's got 3 kids. I had 2 at the time, but they were young, right? Like 2 years old, 3 years old. And he sat down with his wife and he told her, for the next 2 years, I'm not going to be here in the morning and I won't see you until night because I got to go fix this. And he's telling me this story and I'm just like beside myself because like I think of my boys, like I wouldn't want to miss those ages specifically, right? And he's sharing this with me because he heard me talking about these concepts and he goes, I made a decision that I was doing this for them. but they never asked me for that. They never wanted that. And man, if I could go back, I would change it.
Yep.
And I think it's important for people to understand, like,
Totally.
I think we make up stories in our head about what's important and what's required that are just not true. And unfortunately, sometimes with enough perspective, you can get there. But wow, wouldn't it be great to get that perspective now before you make these decisions, right? Climb this ladder of success and get to the top and look around and go, shit, it's leaning against the wrong wall. Like, I actually wanted that. That's why I want to share with you, man. Because dude, when he shared that with me, my heart was broken.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Thanks
couldn't
for
go
sharing
back.
that. Yeah. You know, and as you mentioned earlier on, Jason, I had the pleasure to meet thanks to Jason Gagnon in MMT. And the last MMT was, I mean, the number of deep conversation we had is fascinating. And one of them was around that. Precisely. As you're working hard because you do it for your family, that's what you tell yourself, but you never see your family. You don't block time to have experience with your family. You don't create experiences with the kids. You're not there for the important moment. And at the end of the day, you know, I always said, I take my decision with my wife, and I'm not going to try to convince anyone, but what's important for me. And I'm not afraid of working hard. But besides the fact that sometimes schools think that parents don't work and they can tell you 24 hours in advance that something's happening, but everything is blocked in that sense. And that gives also, I'm sorry for the person you just mentioned, because you cannot buy back time. It's impossible unless
they didn't know. Like, this is why I share that. Unless you buy my book.
You read my book. No, but you understand what I'm saying. It's the fact.
But that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Like, literally what I'm trying to say is, like, be sure you know what you're optimizing for, right? Like, I ask my kids every week, how can I show up as a dad better for you? I get the feedback. They'll tell me. Then I at least know and I can make a decision. And if they say things like, I wish we could take a day off and go do stuff, magically, we can. Why? Because I don't have, like, I own my calendar, right? Or if they say, like, literally whatever. I mean, the other day my kid was like, I want to go get a friggin' metal detector and go metal detecting. So now I own a metal detector, right? And I spent a lot of time digging holes. I think we got to change the settings because most of the stuff that gets resonating is like 6 feet down. I got a little shovel, ain't gonna dig 6 feet down. So we got to change the setting to 1 foot. But so it's that they never asked you for that. And 2, you can actually create more income if you buy back your time, because $10 million companies were not built off $10 tasks. And if you think the primary input to success is your hour focused typing or doing, you are not investing in leverage or skill sets or beliefs or character traits.
Yep.
Dude, I got to spend a week with Richard Branson. Okay. He runs 400. Okay. Let me rephrase that. He owns 400 companies. He's a multi-billionaire. He's the billionaire every other billionaire wants to be like. And he gets more done in a 90-minute meeting with his executive assistant over breakfast than most CEOs will get done in 3 years working 100-hour weeks, because he understands leverage and he's bought back his time. But he also made a conscious decision, you know, like, I have a house manager. She's incredible. She literally does everything my wife or I would do. She manages all my assets, my car cleaning, gas stuff. Like, literally, I have not put, you know, this is not a flex. I haven't put gas in my own car or clean my car or anything for years. And I don't want to, and I won't. Right. Now, my neighbor comes over and goes, wow, that would be nice. And I'm staring at him as he bought the brand new Mercedes S-Class. And he's telling me about how he just got back from 5 weeks in Europe and like all these other things, you know? And I'm like, that's a decision.
Yeah.
You decided to allocate your resources and capital in a different way than I did. So if you're inspired by that, like, dude, Eric, if you said you're starting from scratch tomorrow, zero, everything's gone, what would you do? I would go borrow the money, hard money lending, 20% interest, whatever it would take to keep my executive assistant and my house manager, because those two people create the most amount of leverage in my life that would allow me to go and deploy my skill that I've developed, because I bought back the time, I reinvested it. That's part of the equation, audit, transfer, fill, and become somebody that creates a lot of value. And that's what I want people to understand.
And I'm sure the answer is yes, but is it something you are teaching in the SaaS Academy? And talking about the SaaS Academy, if you can share a little bit for those listening that might, I don't know how, but not know you, when did the idea come from? Come on. Yeah. I mean, it's so many. You spoke about SaaS today. I was leading a SaaS company, and somebody in Europe was referencing a graph, and I look under the graph source SaaS Academy. I couldn't help but smile. But how did you start that idea, and what are you teaching people related to the new book now?
Yeah. So the book was a byproduct of starting to coach people, right? So like for a long time, I've been investing in tech companies for 15 years. So like even as an operator, so I learned this in 2008 was really when I started to perfect this, so this was a long time ago, 15 years ago. And then as I invested in companies, I would teach the CEOs this methodology, right? But it wasn't as defined as it is today, because like I would just tell them the concept. You don't hire people to grow your business. You hire people to buy back your time, because like I would argue with CEOs I was like, hey, come to my office. Let's jam on this new idea. And they're like, I would love to, but I'm working. Like this would be a Saturday. And then they'd be like, I'd love to, but I'm doing laundry. And I'm like, what? I know what well, these are 20-some-year-olds. They don't know. I go to wash and fold, drop your clothes off, and I'll meet you at my office. And if I ever hear you do laundry again, we're going to have a conversation. Okay. Yeah. So I perfected it through the early advising of these 50 plus CEOs I've had the privilege of investing in. And then when I started coaching, because I predominantly work with like software CEOs that have traction in revenue. And I just assumed like we're going to work on the operational models and sequencing and strategy. And then I realized they didn't even have time to execute the stuff that I was teaching. So then I had to go back to the idea of like the buyback principle and the tools that I teach in the book around how to work with an executive assistant. I even teach this framework called the replacement ladder. So it's been core in SaaS Academy for a while, but it was broken up into different pieces. See, that's where I underestimated the power of a book. Okay. My wife, I'll tell you this. Okay. I have pictures of my wife every night for the last 10 days reading my book because it's blowing my mind. Eric, my wife does not like watching a video of me. She loves me, but I don't know if you get it, but like, so she's reading my book and I'm taking, literally, she's like laying next to me. She's on the couch in our bedroom or whatever. And I just take a picture. And last night she sends me a text message. Okay. And it said, I'll read it out loud. I'm going to give you an exclusive. Where is she here? My beautiful wife. Dan, your book is so good. I'm almost done. I've read a chapter and executed, read another chapter and executed. The mindset shifts, a new plan of attack. My revenue has 8x'd. This week I'm hiring and next week I'm getting my time back, all exclamation marks. Like, holy F, it works. And I reply, for real? Like, look at this. I'm like, for real? And she's like, yes. If I don't stop with this momentum, it will be 10x. And I go, you should. That's my reply. You should.
Wow.
And then she goes, I will. But then I say, just so you know, though, life gets better the more you grow if you follow the buyback loop, right? Which is the audit, transfer, fill. Because if you don't, it's so funny, man. People will start and get all these results and then grow and stop doing the thing I taught them as a principle. It doesn't, it's not like a thing you do to start. You do this forever. Like I do the buyback loop every 4 months, right? Audit, transfer, fill every 4 months. I'm always trying to buy back my time. And I share that because I asked her in person after. I said, okay, I need to understand what was different about the book. Like you live this life with me. You see the way I make decisions. You're experiencing this, through osmosis. And she goes, I think I needed to see it as a complete system to finally get it.
Okay.
And Eric, that's what's not in SaaS Academy, because SaaS Academy was like the inbox GPS system for managing an assistant's inbox, or how to do the camcorder method. So like I had all these tools, but they were disconnected. And with the book, I was forced to create a narrative arc and teach and the belief thing's a big one, just like systematically attacking beliefs, so that as they're working through each chapter, it's like an onion, right?
Yeah.
I can't go to chapter 13 without doing chapter 1, because you're not ready for chapter 13. And you ain't ready for chapter 15, which is the buyback life, because if I can't get you figuring the stuff in your business where you make money when you buy back your time, asking you to buy back time in your household sounds crazy, because like I'm just now going to spend money paying people to clean my house and do my meal prep and all this. I'm like, all right, let's go back to the business stuff. I'll give you some wins there. And then you'll eventually go like, oh, my life can look completely different if I give myself permission to invest in myself. And that to me is, what's different about SaaS Academy versus the book. But the cool part is, Eric, you can imagine now when you become a client, the book is in the welcome box.
Of course. You just say something about investing in yourself. And I'm fascinating. I come from the meetings and event industry originally. And I'm fascinating by the number of people that do two things. First, they read something or they have a plan of action and there is no execution and no accountability. Second is the lack of self-investment. I don't know if it's because there's a lot of familiarization trip where you're invited, the trade show where you're hosted buyer, but people don't seem to take, in their hands, their future and investing in themselves, because the rest is always free. And to your point, buying back your time means also hiring people that are going to do stuff for yourself. But before anything else, it's investing in yourself and having an execution on each plan and on each chapter. Is it me? Is it only my industry, or is it something that you've seen all over the years?
No, it's every person. And I'll tell you why. Is in the book, I talk about the 5 time assassins. And you need to understand that, because most people, the reason they won't buy back their time is because they don't trust themselves. They don't trust themselves, or I don't feel worthy of it. I'm not allowed to. I'm supposed to suffer. It's supposed to be hard. This is what building a business is like. I'm supposed to do the work nobody else wants to do, right? Because you hear all this stuff. And what happens is, like you essentially end up becoming a martyr. It's almost like you're doing it for all the wrong reasons, right? And what I've learned is a lot of the lack of finding the space in your life and your calendar, it's self-imposed. That's why I have a whole chapter dedicated to this, because I go through these 5 different time assassins to show you where you are actually sucking time out of your life by having these behaviors, and they cost nothing. It's a decision once you see it, right? Because not feeling worthy is a decision. Being a micromanager is a decision. Being somebody, one of the 5 assassins is called the self-medicator, right? That's the person that is often celebrating or dealing with struggle through substances, and then not realizing the emotional shrapnel that decision makes in your calendar into the future, right? Being hungover, getting in a fight with your spouse, all these things.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's where I think a lot of people, they learn something, they don't take action. There's a belief that stops them, and it's super normal. It's the reason why most people don't buy books. Okay. Like, I love everybody listening to this podcast. Like, I appreciate you. But I also know about 10% are going to decide to go invest in themselves. That's 27, whatever the investment is, it's like nothing, right? Because the rest of them are just not there yet. They're just like, I don't have proof that I don't trust myself. They literally, I never do what I say I'm going to do anyway. So why would I buy back my time to go be a procrastinator? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense, Eric?
It does.
Yeah.
I don't have proof in believing. It always, for whatever reason, remind me of this meme. You see fresh paint on a bench, and there's a sign that says, "Don't sit here, fresh paint." And the legend of the meme said, people will believe in a God they don't see, but as soon as they see the sign, they just want to touch the bench to see if it's true.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. It is. But the mindset is so important. And also what I really appreciate with you is that you don't wait. In French, you say tu fonces.
Fonce. Mais moi, je
Tu
parle
fonces.
français. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire tu fonces?
It means you're going for it. You just don't wait. When you're convinced
drive.
of something, you drive. Yeah. Exactly. The drive that you have for everything you do. And I just remember when I did the 75 hard the whole year as well, and you were just a little bit further in the other phase. When I learned at the end of the first phase, which is the I don't know what they call it, the 75, then the three other
the
phases.
onboarding the boot. Yeah, they call it
the boot camp, whatever.
Boot camp,
I just learned that the first phase, which is the second phase, in fact, needed to have a cold shower. And I thought, me, cold shower on my dead body. And then I thought, maybe I want to do it. And then I call you, say, Dan, what kind of technique do you do for the cold shower? Do you do the Wim Hof training, breathing? And you just told me, no, man, I just open the freaking shower and go into it. I said, okay. Well, I needed some hacks. So I found out that Iron Man 2, the movie, Thunderstruck from AC/DC lasts for 4 minutes and 57 seconds.
That's a good hack. Yeah.
I play it and my wife was hear me screaming the kids, but what's going on? And my wife said, that's okay. He's just doing his stuff. But coming back to you and the drive that you have, that's what I think is people are afraid of starting or they're procrastinating, but also they don't want to try it. They're afraid of failure. They're afraid of what others going to say. They're afraid of what their friends going to say. Where at the end of the day, you believe in yourself, and whatever the people that really care for you will always be there to support you.
Yeah, the people that care don't matter, and the people that matter don't care.
That's a nice way of saying it. Absolutely.
It's not my quote. I just heard it once and I love it. But I mean, I'll say two things. One, I had the privilege and blessing of getting in so much trouble as a kid. People's expectations of me were less than zero. So there was no fear. Anything that wasn't me back in jail was a super win. So that was a huge blessing in hindsight with enough time, because there was no expectations. So I had expectations of just like, don't relapse, don't go back. But then in my entrepreneurial career, there was zero. Like I just kept trying. But my dad, I mean, the third one, he was like, you should maybe consider getting a normal job. And I was like, no, I'm going to just keep doing this. I was doing contract work as a programmer. I was like, I just can't work for somebody else. I'm too opinionated, blah, blah, blah. I will say that. So that's on the first one. I got lucky because I started so low that there was no fear. And by the time I figured it out and there was fear, I built that muscle. The second muscle that I've developed, because it is not normal, okay, is the one that when you can't, you must.
When you can't,
when you can't, you must. Okay. I want people to hear this. When you can't, you must. Man, I just learned a long time ago that if something scares me, there's a great quote by Joseph Campbell says, the cave that you fear to enter most holds the treasure that you seek.
That's Plato.
Okay. It's either Plato, yeah. You know how it is, like everything's quoted to Einstein. Are you sure it's not Einstein? Maybe it's Churchill. I think Churchill said that. But anyway, so just that language, right? Is the thing that you fear the most, the cave that you fear the most to enter holds the treasure you seek. I just learned a long time ago, I actually use that as a feedback mechanism. So when I'm anxious, and this is where my definition of hustle is completely different than most. Most people think hustle is work your ass off. I outwork. Talking to my best buddy on the weekend, Nathan. I was like, congratulations, man. Like, I'm really impressed with what you're doing and what you're creating. He goes, yeah, well, I just chose to outwork everybody. I'm going to hustle harder than everybody. And that language scares me because I knew where he was using it from, and it's actually not productive. For me, hustle is I choose to do the thing that makes me most anxious first. My day is stacked reversed based on things I do not want to do.
Yep.
So I've built this muscle that when I can, I must. I have a cold plunge. Actually, it's one of my most viral videos lately. I was in the sauna and I just pulled out my camera and I was showing them because the day before I had a bunch of friends over and we were going between the sauna and the cold plunge. And, a few of my buddies' wives, one leg right? One foot. Then they sit on the edge, the other foot, right? And then they slowly get their bum in there, and they freak out and then they jump out. And I'm like, I'm just in my head. So my rule is kind of funny. I live a life of where I am obviously very aware of people's beliefs and challenges, but I don't say anything because I learned a long time ago, be the lighthouse, not the tugboat. So I keep all this inside. I save it for podcasts. I post it on social. But so what happened is I didn't tell anybody who it was or whatever. I just said, like, I saw that and I just thought they don't understand, like, that behavior showing up in their lives in other places. That timidness, they just get in the water. There's no decision to make. You made the decision to go in, get in.
Yeah. So
I did that the day after. I pull out my phone and I'm in the sauna and I go, look, like, a lot of you guys are timid about life. You're not pulling you make a decision, but it's not really a decision. It's a decision to maybe decide if I'm going to make it a full-time decision. It's like, no, if you know in your soul, it's the right decision, right? When I say the knowing doing gap, if I'm at a business conference and I hear somebody say, like, you should do this, and I'm like, yes. And in my soul, I feel that there's no decision anymore. I made the decision. Now it's execution. Yep. So I just took a video and I jumped in and I went in the cold plunge. But as you know, like it took my breath. So here I am on the video, like it messed me up, but I'm still talking and I'm staying in the water and I'm like trying to talk through the uncomfortness, which is high. And I think that's what people thought fascinating, but it's just like, for me, once I decide to do something, I just do it. Now that's a muscle though. I wasn't always that way. I would give myself outs. I'd sometimes sabotage. Dude, there's so many times I've been on like these long runs, like maybe my first 10K race. And I was like, man, I could pretend I pulled a muscle. Nobody would know. Like, I would have these conversations with myself, right? Anybody who's ever done long distance running, I'm assuming, or maybe I'm weird, you think to yourself, I hate this right now. I don't want to do it. I could fake an injury and just be stopped and nobody would hold it against me and nobody would know any different. But I would know.
You would know. Exactly.
I would know. And that eats away at that muscle and that would eat away at me. And then that would take a start. Like, here's what I also realized, Eric. Whoever has a negative outcome in their life, put on some weight, business failed, marriage fell apart, whatever. There was a day that you were spiraling up and for whatever reason, you made a different series of decisions and you started a downward spiral. It's that simple. You're either spiraling up or you're spiraling down, but there was a day that you don't know where you made a decision and it started the downward spiral.
Totally. And
I'm scared of that day. So I just choose success habits, business fundamentals, commitments. I just choose to make every day better than yesterday because I'm scared that might be the day that one of these, things in my life could spiral downward because nobody woke up 10 pounds heavier and said, like, I want to weigh 10 pounds more. They just started, they made a decision. Maybe they decided not to get on scale. Maybe they decided to eat out that night instead of eating at home. Maybe they decided to say yes to going to a friend's birthday party when they knew they shouldn't. Absolutely. I don't know, but they just wake up and that's the reality.
You're absolutely right. And at the end of the day, as the guy or the girl in the mirror that you see in the morning, that's the only judge.
Yep. And it's you against you from yesterday. That's what I tell my boys all the time. They want to talk about their buddy at school, their friend did this. I'm like, hey guys, I love that you're excited for your friends and you're sharing this with me. But the truth is I'm more interested in talking about you from yesterday and how you're showing up today.
Yep. Totally.
And you know, if you left it out in practice or you did this or, you've made 1% or one little decision that's better. And that's what I want to reward.
Dan, thank you so much. I can talk to you for hours and listen to you for hours. You're just amazing. And yes, it's definitely one of the best, if not the best podcast I've recorded. So thank you very much for that. Before we go, Buy Back Your Time just came out last week. How could people get in touch with you or buy your book or find the information about it?
Yeah. So I believe in my book so much that I refuse to give it to my friends. I just want everybody here understand, like, they're like, oh, can I get a copy? I'm like, no, you can get a copy. Like, and I share that because I understand how powerful and important it is for people to invest in themselves. So yes, I would encourage everybody to go get it. But once you get it and you start to do stuff with it, circle back to me. Instagram, Dan Martell, 2 L's of Martell. Find me on social media. I'm all over the place. Let me know what resonated the most with you. What's been the biggest impact? And be sure to go download all the resources at buybackyourtime.com. I literally put a bunch of scripts and templates and processes that I talk about in the book, but I couldn't put in the book I wanted to make those available. So go download those. Those are my gift to you. And Eric, as per usual, man, it's an honor. And I appreciate the kind words. And I'm going to take the gift of your time and I will try to do well with it out there in the world. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have an amazing day.
Dan, thank you so very much for taking the time to speak with me. I love your energy, love your drive. I love what you're saying. It resonates a lot with me. And I know that people will enjoy buying the book, Buy Back Your Time, and most importantly, applying all the concepts that are inside. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please go on LinkedIn and join my Facebook group, www.eventbusinessformula.com/group. And if you enjoyed this conversation with Dan, please share it with your network. Thank you.